Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled, What if Clemson joined the SEC? The realignment move that changed college football forever. In 2012, the SEC expanded. In our reality, they added Texas A&M and Missouri. But what if the SEC looked at the landscape of college football and made a different choice? What if the SEC invited Clemson instead? At the time, Clemson was not a dynasty. They weren't dominating the postseason. They weren't the program we'd eventually come to know. They were simply a good football school with a passionate fan base, a famous stadium, and a coach who believed larger things were coming. The SEC saw potential. ESPN saw TV ratings. Executives saw another major football brand. And so, in this alternate timeline, Clemson accepts an invitation to become the SEC's newest member. The reaction is immediate. Some fans love it, others don't. Most are confused. The SEC already has South Carolina. Why add another school from the same state? But the SEC isn't buying geography, it's buying inventory, more rivalry games, more TV ratings, more football. What nobody realizes is that the SEC has just invited a future superpower into its own conference, and that decision is about to change everything. And that sets the table for South Carolina's worst nightmare. No fan base reacts more negatively than South Carolina. Think about it. For years, Clemson had been a rival, a heated rival, but still a non-conference rival. Now they're joining the same conference, same division, competing for the same championships, recruiting the same players, going after the same TV exposure. Steve Spurrier's South Carolina team's in the middle of the best run in school history. Momentum is everywhere, and suddenly the SEC imports the one program they least wanted to see. Every recruiting battle becomes harder. Every division race becomes harder. Every path to Atlanta is now much more difficult. South Carolina isn't losing because Clemson joined. They're losing because Clemson joined them. And as painful as this is for South Carolina fans, they aren't even the largest victims of this move. And that sets the table for the ACC panic. The moment Clemson leaves, panic spreads throughout the ACC, not because Clemson is their best team, but because Clemson leaving means somebody believes the conference is vulnerable. If Clemson thinks the ACC's future is uncertain, what does Florida State think? Or Miami? Or Virginia Tech? Athletic directors begin making phone calls. Presidents begin asking uncomfortable questions. Nobody trusts the future anymore. The ACC doesn't collapse, not even close, but something important changes. For the first time, everyone can see the cracks. And once people start looking for cracks, they begin finding more than what they expected. And that sets the table for Clemson gets humbled. Now comes the part where other alternate histories could get it wrong. Clemson does not immediately dominate the SEC. In fact, the SEC hits Clemson like a truck, week after week, year after year. The Tigers discover that every Saturday feels like a heavyweight battle. Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina. Nobody gives you a week off. Nobody feels sorry for you. They still win games. They're talented. They're dangerous. But 9-3 and 8-4 are the norm. The road is much more difficult than it was in the ACC. And yet something important is happening beneath the surface. Dabo Swinney isn't discouraged, he's learning. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every setback is a blueprint. Every weakness becomes a recruiting cell. The losses aren't stopping Clemson. They're teaching Clemson exactly what it takes to win championships. And that sets the table for recruiting. And this is where the butterfly effect begins. Because Clemson is no longer selling ACC football, they're selling SEC football, playing on the largest stage in the sport, playing in the toughest conference in America. The sell is powerful, and the recruiting map starts to change. South Carolina feels it immediately, as does Tennessee and Florida, but the largest problem belongs to Georgia. Now elite recruits hear the same message from every direction. Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, and Clemson all want them, all selling SEC football, all recruiting the same backyard. The SEC thought it was adding another member. Instead, it created another competitor. And that sets the table for Nick Saban. If there's one thing Nick Saban has always been, it's prepared. He notices Clemson growth before most people do. The recruiting classes, the roster depth, the improved line play. the growing confidence. He sees the future coming, and he responds the only way he knows how. He evolves. Alabama modernizes faster. Recruiting operations expand. Analytics become even more important. Every edge gets explored, every weakness attacked. The SEC thought it was strengthening Clemson. What it actually did was force Alabama to become even better. And college football is about to feel the consequences. And that sets the stage for the battle of the SEC. By the middle of the decade, the conference becomes absolute chaos. Georgia is rising, Florida is trying to recover, Tennessee is trying to matter again, South Carolina refuses to go away, and Clemson is now a legitimate contender. The SEC becomes even more brutal. Every weekend feels like a playoff game. Every championship race is intense. And somewhere, SEC schedulers are filing workers' compensation claims. The conference has become too deep, too competitive, too loaded with talent. And eventually that creates a new problem, the playoff committee. And that sets the table for the playoff problem. The committee never expected this. Some years Alabama has one loss, some years Clemson has two, some years Georgia has two. All of them look like championship caliber teams. Meanwhile, champions from other conferences point to cleaner records. The arguments become endless. Who deserves to get in? The 11-2 SEC runner-up or the undefeated champion from elsewhere? Every ranking sparks outrage. Every playoff reveal becomes national TV drama. The SEC has become so strong that the playoff format struggles to review it fairly, and the problem keeps getting worse. And that sets the table for Trevor Lawrence changing everything. Then comes another elite quarterback prospect, a future superstar, the type of player capable of changing a program, the type of player capable of changing a sport. And he still chooses Clemson. In fact, SEC membership might have made the decision even easier. Now Clemson has elite recruiting, SEC resources, national visibility, and championship expectations. Clemson reaches another level. Championships arrive. Playoff appearances become routine, and suddenly the SEC has multiple dynasties operating at the same time. Not one, multiple. The conference is becoming something college football has never seen before. And that sets the table for the twist nobody saw coming. Here's the twist. The largest winner is not Clemson nor Alabama. It's actually the SEC itself. The conference becomes deeper, stronger, more influential, even more powerful. The SEC didn't destroy Clemson. Clemson didn't destroy Alabama. Instead, the conference accidentally created another national powerhouse under its own roof. For years, college football tried to catch up, and for years it couldn't. Because the SEC thought it was adding another member. Instead, it created another Alabama. And college football was never the same again. And if you enjoyed this college football alternate history deep dive, hit like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next timeline.